Hi, I am Jen Mack and I'm a child and educational psychologist. That means I spend most of my working week with families and schools working around all aspects of child development and learning. Something which comes up a lot is social media, either concerns about social media or issues relating to social media. I also have been doing this talk now, or versions of this talk, for a couple of years in schools for parents, and I realised it was World Safer Internet Day, and I thought, why not just record the slides and put it out there in case other people find it useful too. So that's what I do. I think it's going to be a couple of videos. I'm going to split them up into sections. This first one is just an introduction to the topic. Okay, so my Instagram and Twitter handles are just here on the screen, as well as my email address if you need to contact me for any reason. Okay, so I'm going to briefly outline. No, I'm not, because I can't turn the slide. Okay, first of all, I'm just going to briefly outline what I mean when I talk about social media and my thoughts on why it's such a tricky area for parents to navigate and how perhaps we can think a bit differently about our approach. I'm going to outline some of the things that we like about social media. What is it that appeals to children and young people? And out of that, what can we harness that's good? But equally, I'm then going to address some of the risks, the things that we as parents should be mindful of or can be mindful of. I'm going to close the series of videos with some practical ideas and a framework for action for you to hold in mind when you encounter a difficult situation with your child and social media. I don't think it's possible or even desirable to create a list of instructions that parents must follow or must not do in relation to internet use and their children. So what I've done is I've created a framework which you can apply to whichever specific thing arises, which you can instinctively tailor to your personal perspective, your family boundaries, and your own understanding of your child's unique personality. Okay, so here are some examples of specific social media platforms, and honestly I feel like every time I do this talk there's a new one. It's really hard to keep up, which I think actually is something that worries us as parents. It feels like we're always one step behind. Broadly, I use the definition of social media being something which anyone can create and share content on, and you can join a kind of interactive community. And you can see on the screen, we've got the usual culprits, which might sound quite familiar: TikTok, Instagram, and so on. I'm just going to point out some specific ones which might feel like a surprise. YouTube, I mentioned this specifically, not only because obviously it has the ability to upload videos or comment on other people's videos, but it also has this unregulated content aspect. Children can watch videos which may feel factual, but have no moderation, fact checking, or any kind of overseeing. Also, I think with young children, parents of young children, we tend to let them use YouTube maybe earlier than we would use other forms of social media. So it's a good place to start building this really good foundation. And similarly for online gaming, I think in my work with primary schools, I'm finding that this is, many children's foray into social media. And sometimes when parents are thinking about online gaming, they're considering only the content of the game and not necessarily the potential interactions with others online. Okay, so these are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Now, let's think about parenting itself, okay? One reason why our children's digital lives can feel so daunting and confusing trying to parent through it is that for most of this generation of parents, we have no blueprint for it. Okay, so consider the fact that in parenting, we tend to have models of raising children which we have absorbed through living our own life, okay? The actions of our parents can form a model that we emulate or that we want to emulate, copy, or in some cases, we want to do the opposite of what our parents did. But whatever it is, we are responding to a model, examples that we had of how we were parented and the fact that parenting was done. Okay, and that's not really the case with social media. It's kind of an unexplored territory. And I think a lot of us parents, we feel as though we're flying blind here. Okay. There's an analogy about social media and internet use that I see often, which is this idea that it's like passing a driving test. As a society, we know cars are potentially dangerous to either be a passenger in or to encounter on the roads. And we act to reduce the risk of being a driver by setting tasks. Okay, you have to learn about driving theory, undertake driving lessons, and then once you've proved yourself, you're allowed to drive alone once you've got a certain level of skill. It's not a bad model for thinking about digital lives because we're acknowledging the risk and the value of education, and we kind of hope for the best once they're out there driving independently or living their digital lives independently. But I actually don't think it goes far enough to be useful for us as parents. So I'm going to extend it to show you how we can think quite differently about raising our children to be sensible in their digital lives using social media. So, parenting in readiness for safely driving a car once our children are 17 or so starts when our children are born. We embed the idea of road safety straight away, and we parent for two things. We manage the risk, we make it safer, and we teach our children how to be sensible. We hold their hands near the road until we can trust them not to run into it. We give them toy cars and roads to build and play with, and by doing so, we're increasing their familiarity and their understanding of that part of life. We also make travelling by road safer. We use car seats because we know there's a risk of injury. We teach children how to safely and sensibly cross roads. We talk to them about it. By doing so, we're making them aware of the risk of danger from cars. Our children get older, perhaps we teach them how to travel using a bike. We start in a park because it's a safer environment, and we make it even safer for them with a helmet, with bike lights, reflective clothes. We teach them the rules of the road, how to respect traffic lights and stop signs. We acknowledge at some points that they're growing up because we replace car seats with seat belts. We still acknowledging the risk of danger, we're making it safer, but we're doing this in an age-appropriate way. Similarly, when our child is older and we think they're a good enough cyclist, perhaps we allow them to make short journeys alone. We're increasing their independence in line with their development. Okay. But then, and only then, after a whole lifetime of learning about cars and road safety, do they begin their short, specific journey towards being an independent car driver. It's at the end of a lifetime of learning. As parents, we do most of that stuff as standard. We see road safety as a standard part of raising children, and like some of it like baby seats or holding hands crossing the road, we barely even think about it. It just is. We might even remember things our own parents said to us about, look before we cross the road, look left, right, left again, about bike helmets, and all of the things that we were taught influence our own parenting choices. We also accept that different families make different decisions on some of it based on their own boundaries, their tolerance for risk, and so on. Some children never cycle. Some children are cycling on roads almost from the start. Some children are in super protective rear-facing seats until they start school, but others are forward-facing on a booster as soon as it's legal. Okay, some families do judge each other for making different choices, but road safety, is in general a part of family life that we expect to be dealing with, and we also expect that different people, different families, different children have got different approaches. In the next video, I'm going to continue to join the dots and think about how this relates to social media.